And we're live.
Yay. Awesome.
Hi, everyone. We're
It's
so glad.
working.
We're so glad to see all of our wonderful faces, and we hope that you're all joining us with a happy hour beverage for our conversation today. We hope you'll put some comments in questions in the chat wherever you're watching. And there is a little bit of a delay, so it's not exactly real time. It's at least 10-second delay on the live. And really excited to have Jenna Wolf here to host this conversation of all of the producers of the Decameron Opera Coalition. So I'll hand this off to Jenna.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jenna Wolf. I'm the Digital Media and Publicity Manager at Lenny's Studio. And we were really thrilled and honored to collaborate with the newly formed Decameron Opera Coalition on the world premiere of Tales from a Safe Distance on design and promotion. So it's awesome to be here tonight with this great group of people on Friday the 13th. What better way to spend the day than with all of you? So I have to say cheers to the DOC, cheers to what was such a great world premiere in October. It's just been super to see how this project has developed, and also to get to know sort of remotely everyone on this chat involved with this incredible commission. So I want to give everybody the opportunity on this call to take a moment to introduce themselves to you, and they'll share the name of their company, where the company's based, but also where they're calling from, because all of those items don't necessarily correlate this evening, which is great. We're spanning several time zones tonight on this chat. So anyway, without further ado, Maria, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Maria Sensi-Sellner. I'm the Artistic and General Director of Resonance Works in Pittsburgh, and I am in Pittsburgh, in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh. So not that exciting, but here we are. And let's do it this way. I'm going to tag in Bob Wood.
All right. I'm Bob Wood, founder and artistic director, no longer executive and artistic director because we've hired an executive director, which is very exciting. Of Urban Arias, we are based in the DC area, and I am in Arlington, Virginia. And now over to Letizia Ruccolo.
Hello, everybody. So I'm the artistic director of the opera, and I am now in France, and it's 12 a.m. For me. And I've been here for the last 4 months, and it's here that I recorded all the music for our episodes of the Tales from a Safe Distance. And now to Kelly Turpin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm the producer and artistic director of Ann Opera Theater, or AOT, as many call us, in the Twin Cities. And I am tuning in from Minneapolis tonight. Okay, I will shoot it over to Danny Brylo of Milwaukee Opera Theater.
Hi, I'm Danny Brylo of Milwaukee Opera Theater. I'm the company manager, and I'm currently in Milwaukee. And I will also introduce our artistic director, Jill Anapanasik.
I'm Jill Anapanasik, the artistic director of Milwaukee Opera Theater, and I'm calling from Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. And I nominate Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lawrence. I'm the co-general artistic director of Lyric Opera of the North in Duluth, Minnesota, and I am in Duluth, Minnesota. And David.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Hamilton, general artistic director of Fargo-Moorhead Opera, and I am indeed in Fargo, North Dakota. And let's see who's up next. How about Aki?
Thanks, everybody. This is Aki Isamura, calling in from Houston and representing Opera in the Heights. I'm its artistic and general director, and I'd like to swing it over to Kirsten Scott.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kirsten Scott. I am general director of Bear Opera, and I am calling in from southern Germany, Deutschland. I'm in Breitbrunn am Chiemsee, and like Leticia, it is midnight, but we are young and fresh at midnight, aren't we? I'm going to pass it over to the one and only Matt Barrese.
Oh, that was a good Chicago kind of fanfare. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and that sounds like a Bulls opening, but it is 5 p.m. and I am neither young nor fresh, but here I am. I also don't have my own opera company, unlike the rest of my colleagues here. I exist in a unique space in the coalition, in that composer Peter Hilliard and myself originally conceived of the notion of putting together a group of boutique opera companies and adapting the Decameron, and we call these fine folks. So they have been kind enough to let me hang on here tonight and lend my perspective as well.
Fantastic. I think we covered everyone. Am I correct? Awesome. That was a fun game of tag. It's the first time I've played tag, I think, since I was 4. So anyway, thanks to everyone for introducing yourselves. And again, thank you to anyone who's joining us this evening and watching. As you heard tonight, we have fantastic, fantastic people joining from France, Germany, across the US. And although the Decameron Opera Coalition is a coalition, again, assembled of US-based opera companies, and then we've got the wonderful creative team of Hilliard and Barrese. This is also a situation like none other, in that all of the wonderful people on this call magically put together a world premiere at a distance. So not only were these tales told at a safe distance and artists recorded videos and all of that, but this group, this team found a way to commission a new work from various creative teams to incorporate different artists working in different communities, different videography teams, all of that. Everybody came together to make something new, to create something brand new that premiered last month in 4 episodes online, which are all available now. You can go to DecameronOperaCoalition.org, buy your ticket, $15, you get to stream everything. And you can experience what is truly one of the most unique projects that I've not only seen, but I think the most unique project that we've gotten to be a part of at Lenny's studio in this sense. And I wanted to start off talking a little bit about the makeup of the Decameron Opera Coalition, because again, this is something really special. We're looking at a situation where many companies from across the U.S. in different cities with different, audiences, different missions came together in one project. And I would love to sort of do maybe the same round robin a little bit, where you could each tell us a little bit about your company and what makes it unique. What sets your company apart, maybe within your city, within your state, or within the industry. So Maria, why don't we start with you and then we can work on.
Sure. So Resonance Works is not very old. We're in our 8th season. And in Pittsburgh, we're at various times the 3rd or 4th company that produced opera. Resonance Works was founded, we founded it in 2013. And the mission is to produce artist-centric, artist-driven programming across a broad range of genres of classical music. So we started with opera. In a season for us usually has at least one fully staged opera or musical theater piece, some concert work with chamber orchestra, some oratorio, some chamber music. We used to, when we could do things live, we had a chamber music series in a bar, and different combinations of all of those kinds of elements. So we're everything's rather intimate and it's small scale, so we can be nimble and mix and mingle all of those elements. So this was a really great project for us because it adapted to this space very, very easily. But we're in a medium-sized city, I would say, and we are in the shadow of several bigger opera companies in town. So we operate in that kind of a space. Let's contrast that a little bit, and I'm going to throw this to Sarah Lawrence in Duluth, Minnesota.
Hi. Lyric Opera of the North is 15 years old. It was founded by Ruth Jacobson, a Duluthian who had studied at Juilliard and had an international singing career. And when she came home to Duluth to raise her daughter, she who actually sang in this opera, she started looking around. There was opera in Duluth for decades. This has been a well-supported art form here, but at the moment that she returned home, there wasn't. So there were some comedy troupes that did some operas. Colder by the Lake did some operas, and at one of those cast parties, she said, let's get the gang back together from a company that had existed in the 90s. And even small towns in Germany have opera companies. And she said, let's just do this. So there was a lot of opera going on then in this area. And now this company is the only year-round fully professional opera company that produces here. There's a summer festival up on the Iron Range, and of course Minnesota Opera is just down the highway, and Kelly is going to talk about that landscape a little more, I'm sure. And then Fargo-Moorhead is another near neighbor. That's 5.5 hours away. So we're sort of it for things happening year round. We do a variety of formats, a variety of venues. We don't have our own venue, so we perform in restaurants, we perform in 600, 700 seat theaters. Some are small chamber pieces, some are large full orchestra pieces. So we try to do 3 staged performances a year, and we do an annual elementary school tour, which this year, of course, will be virtual. Who's next? I can't decide. Jenna, do you want to assign?
Yeah, we'll say dealer's choice. Let's go to Bob.
Okay. Urban Arias has a distinct mission, and that is that we perform only contemporary repertoire, and even more specifically, we perform only contemporary repertoire that is short, which we define as being about feature film length or 90 minutes long. We have specialized in this for 10 years. And it's been really great. We've really connected with our community. I think we fit very specifically into our ecosystem here in the DC area. We have 4 or 5 wonderful opera companies here, and we are the only people in this community, but actually I think nationwide, that are doing exactly what we're doing. A lot of the reason for the length limitation and the recency is to just find a bunch of repertoire that feels very relevant and very immediate. This project was a no-brainer for us because it was short and also new. So that was easily done. We do this kind of thing all the time, and it was a tremendous opportunity to participate with all these other wonderful folks and to create something in film, which we had never done before. So so yeah, that's basically our gimmick, is we do short new stuff. Within the last 20 years or so, we've done a lot of world premieres, I think 10 at this point, and 7 Urban Arias commissions. So we feel very comfortable in this coalition. I nominate the folks from Bear Opera because I want to hear what's going on in Breitbrunn am Chiemsee.
Leticia, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, start.
Okay, the European contingent, but we actually don't run a European opera company. We run a New York City-based opera company that recently the individuals running it have relocated to Europe. But Bear Opera, we founded it in 2014, and our mission originally started as creating a space for singers to get paid for what they love to do, what we love to do. I'm also a singer. And we wanted to prioritize really high quality art, paying the artists first and foremost, and creating new ways of interpreting classic operas as well as lesser known works. That has evolved over the 6 years that we've existed. And of course, COVID made our contribution to the Decameron Opera Coalition's Tales from a Safe Distance, kind of a new and interesting thing for us. We had dabbled in some virtual reality video, and originally had wanted to do something with that, as we had previously done a few months prior. And then we wanted to try to see what was possible with the limitations of our artists all being in different cities around the world. And we chose to go ahead with that plan, and never once did anyone set set foot in the same room, which was really strange, going from producing something face to face. And that's really been a part of our mission, is like we get people in the seats in the warehouse in New York City, and everyone's there, visceral, it's in your face, it's immersive. And we're thinking, how do we carry that theme over into what we're doing with Tales from a Safe Distance, with our episode, The Late Walk? And the only way we could really do that when we're all in different cities, Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey. Leticia, you were recording in France, but then at one point you were actually in Florence. You were all over the place. I was in London when I recorded. So putting that all together in a green screen space that it was supposed to make it feel like all four of the singers were in the same forest together was the most insane challenge I think we've ever faced. But definitely in keeping with our mission of like this very minimalist but kind of edgy contemporary, bringing opera, new opera tales based on old stories. That was very much in theme. So we were really excited to be part of this production and this coalition. Anything you want to add, Leticia?
No, I mean, it was great what you said, but but it's just like we're a New York company, so that means that we're a world company. We're like basically the company of accents. Everybody has a different accent. Everybody comes from everywhere. And actually, we don't even made the video with people in different cities. It was literally in different continents, because like we were in Europe, other people were in America. We had a team in Korea doing all the graphics, and it's kind of what it is usually when we're in New York. Like basically, I think one time I counted that we were like 10 or 11 nationalities in a project. So that's also something that we're very proud of.
All right, next, why don't we hear from David Hamilton from Fargo-Moorhead Opera?
Well, I think Fargo-Moorhead Opera, compared to all the other companies, is not only the daddy of the coalition, it's the granddaddy of the coalition. This is our 52nd year. We were founded in 1968 by a group of opera lovers here in Fargo, and they started out with Gilbert and Sullivan's The Gondoliers, and here we are 52 years later producing an opera on the Decameron. We produce a full season. As Sarah mentioned, it's a little ways between cities around here, and so we are the only opera company within 4 hours in any direction, maybe 7 hours if you head west. So we produce basically 2 series every year. We do a main stage season, which is bookends our season in the fall and the spring. And then we produce a series of chamber operas during the winter that gives us the opportunity to explore the Baroque, to explore the 21st century. And so we've really made a commitment to doing 21st century opera every year. And the Decameron started us off in the 21st century, and we will also be producing Robert Patterson's Three-Way in March. It will be interesting to do a little social distancing on an opera called Three-Way, but it's going to be it'll be a lot of fun. We'll be doing that with our Gate City Bank Young Artists program, and the young artists will be coming here to Fargo in the middle of February, which is not the most ideal time to come to Fargo, but they'll be here. And so we are trying to provide as much employment opportunity for artists and creators as we can. It's kind of interesting, the connections that are in this coalition. So the founder of Sarah's company, Ruth Jacobson, and I were master's students at Juilliard together. And Sarah has sung with us. And we are currently in collaboration with Loon Opera to build it'll be the 3rd set for us for our upcoming Barber of Seville, which will be direct to video in April. And so we are, it's fun that the opera business is really not that big a space. Jenna Wolf was a student at Concordia College where I teach. And one of Maria's best friends was also one of my former students at Concordia. So there's a lot of connections here within the coalition. So let's bop it over to, how about Joanna?
Sure. Milwaukee Opera Theater is Milwaukee's microbrewery for opera, producing small batches of high-quality, locally produced lyric theater for audiences in southeastern Wisconsin. And we can put that on a bumper sticker for you. I just want to say that I have read about the organizations in the coalition for years and had heard the names of these producers for years. And it was such a gift to be together in the same virtual space and actually make something together. That's been like the greatest prize for me in working on this project together. And I think I kind of said before, but in this time of isolation, to feel like I'm connected to a network that is bigger than just Milwaukee has just been paramount. It's been like life-changing. Milwaukee Opera Theater thinks that almost anything can be an opera and almost any place can be a theater. So we do all kinds of stuff that pops up in all kinds of ways in all sorts of places. I will send it over to Aki.
Thank you, Joanna. Opera in the Heights is based in Houston, Texas. It's home to Houston Grand Opera, which is a very important player in the field worldwide as an innovator. And Opera in the Heights is niche, if you could call it that, is providing a stage for emerging artists and giving important role opportunities for singers who might be in the earlier stages of their career, maybe tackling a major role, one of those bucket list roles for the first time. And like I said, we've been in the same venue for 25 years, and so our company very much intertwined identity-wise with our venue, which is a 300-seat, very intimate space that was converted from a church sanctuary. Great acoustics, and so it began with a group of artists hoping to showcase some wonderful local talent in a great sounding hall, and now. We're starting to branch out a little bit in terms of repertoire from standard rep to some new commissions. Last year we did our first New Works Festival where we did 3 commissions. But all of those were co-commissions with other local organizations, and this one was just so interesting to be inspired and stimulated by so many different voices from so many parts of the country and world, and also this medium of creating opera through film was absolutely new territory for me, and I am, I guess I've caught the bug. I can't wait to make another opera short film. And I know that I'll have a lot of other compatriots to learn from, as I have already from the coalition. So thanks again.
Danny, did you want to add anything else for Milwaukee?
I think Joanna mostly covered it all, but yeah.
Okay, sweet. I love the brew comments. I should have poured a beer tonight instead of a gin and tonic. Matt, could we also hear from you a little bit about your very unique and special role in this coalition?
Absolutely. Well, composer Peter Hilliard and I have been working together since we met in graduate school at NYU nearly 20 years ago. And the first we went to the graduate musical theater writing program, but I was hoping to write libretti and he was hoping to write opera. And so we met and said, let's write a thesis together. And that thesis was Don Imbroglio, an opera you can't refuse, which is a comic modern buffa about the mafia that was produced off-Broadway, actually as a commercial off-Broadway show in 2005 by Beth Morrison Projects. It was Beth Morrison's first show and our first show. So we've always looked at revivifying classic forms and finding truths in the past and bringing them to the present. But our career really leveled up when we started to work with specifically Bob Wood at Urban Arias and companies like this. He produced our like an intermezzo buffa called The Filthy Habit, which has also been produced by Sarah Lawrence at Lyric Opera of the North. And then he commissioned Blue Viola and The Last American Hammer, shows that respectively involve blues music and bluegrass music worked into contemporary opera pieces. But in working with them, with those companies, with Lyric Opera of the North, Urban Arias, and then Maria Sensi-Sellner had recently commissioned us to write a performance art piece that was postponed due to COVID. And that's how this was born. She said, well, that's put off for a while. Got any other ideas? And we said, we do, in fact, we'd like to talk to you about it. But we've had a unique experience in that in working with multiple boutique independent companies like this, we've gotten to pull the curtain back and see what's happening at these companies. And what's happening at these companies is truly special because they are, I mean, while they are not top heavy operations, there are a lot of chief cook and bottle washer types amongst this group who wear many hats and work very, very hard. They do spectacular work. They do national level, international level work in their respective geographies, and are deeply beloved by their constituencies, by their patron base, and do this wonderful, wonderful work. I truly believe that this is where the future of opera lies, and this is where the pulse of opera begins. This is the beating heart of opera. It's all over the country. They all have flavors. They all have, I keep calling it terroir, but the flavor of their locality comes out in their art. And they are creating opera audiences. Yes, they have ticket holders who are also season ticket holders down the road at the big opera company in the city. But they also have people who are novices and who get the bug by seeing these shows, and of course by seeing their outreach programs as well. But I think this is where, I mean, they know their audiences, and they can touch their audiences, and they can get their audiences inspired about this work. And they're doing, you can hear the really exciting and contemporary work that they're doing. So many people find out that opera can speak to the 21st century and have this plurality of sounds and this diversity of creators from companies like the 9 companies in the coalition.
That's awesome. Thanks, Matt.
We're using terroir in all of our future marketing materials.
Yeah, I was saying, I sense like a wine themed meeting coming along, and wine tastings, or I don't know, something's in the works. Kelly, I'd love to hear from you as well, and especially because many people on this call know this already, but I lived in Minnesota for several years. I grew up in North Dakota, went to undergraduate in Concordia College, where David's on faculty. And then I went to graduate school at the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities, graduated from there. And then I ended up working at Minnesota Opera for several years. So I know the state well. I knew Fargo-Moorhead Opera really well, Loon, but really I'd love to hear more about sort of the new and different happening in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And it's very exciting to me. So Kelly, please enlighten us.
I'll try and enlighten you all. Okay. Well, as David said, for Fargo-Moorhead being the granddaddy of the group, we are probably the baby. We are just about to hit our 2-year anniversary on our very first production in a few weeks later this month. And we are really lucky to be part of the very broad and vivid tapestry of the Twin Cities art scene. There's a slew of wonderful small classical arts organizations and even opera organizations here. So we are just a piece of that. But what kind of sets us apart is that we're focused on producing socially relevant works and pieces centered around social justice. And so this piece, as part of the coalition, with our partnership with women's advocates and telling this story, and I think some of our listeners and maybe some of the DOC listeners have heard this before, but that was not a new sort of partnership to us. Every production that we do, we research and partner with at least one local nonprofit or organization that is focused on the issues that we're presenting on the stage, in order for our audience to learn more, in order to be able to take action and be aware of the communities that are around them. And we don't always do, I mean, of course, when you're an opera organization that's based around social justice, social relevant issues, there's a lot of heaviness that comes with that. We try and do one lighter, more jovial piece a year to kind of balance that all out, because we are a fun and young company. But that's kind of the piece that we play and make our mark here in the city. So we were very, very honored to be asked to be part of this, especially as such a young and new company, and to be trusted to be presenting with all these other organizations that I personally very much admire. So yeah, it's been an absolutely wonderful experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And I think we also have Laura on here from Chicago. Is that right, Laura? You here?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. So let's keep the Midwest theme going. So we're heading from Minnesota into Illinois. So Laura, please tell us more about your company and what's happening in Chicago around opera these days. And we'd just love to hear more.
Yeah, Chicago Fringe Opera is also fairly new. We started in 2014 as a way of expanding what opera is all about in the city. And since then, we've seen lots of new storefront companies pop up, and we are starting to work with them really closely, which is exciting. We all sort of stand in the big shadow of the Lyric Opera of Chicago. So we are trying to find pockets that are new works, local artists, supporting anything that is about new stories. So this opportunity was perfect. I want to echo everything that Kelly just said. We are all about what is the future of opera, and this group especially is a part of that. It's all about how we can adapt and push forward. So we have always been a big advocate of changing how people experience opera, but this pushed us even farther than we thought we could do. So it's been an amazing experience. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I think what I'm seeing here is a real theme of connections. And because we all have personal connections either with each other or with friends or colleagues, or, I mean, I knew of Maria and Resonance Works before I knew of DOC, because a dear friend of mine from Concordia College, who also studied with David Hamilton, has worked with Maria before. And so it's a very, very small and strange world. And it also reminds me, I was thinking actually earlier this week about the DOC, and it reminds me a little bit of the band Fleetwood Mac, in that if you looked at each of the members of the band individually, they could have gone and done their own things, but when they came together, it was something even cooler and stronger. And I think that's sort of the case here. And Maria, I want to ask you in particular on this theme of connections and bringing people together. How did this start? How did this collaboration begin for you from a practical perspective? And had you already identified connections with the participating partners? Did you create connections, or did you find them along the way? Like, were there commonalities that existed already, or how did this come to be? Because I think a lot of people are very curious how during this time, this many companies and creative teams could actually feasibly do this.
Sure. I think, Matt referred to this a little bit earlier, that we were already working on something which somehow is still in progress, this other project. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Also coming to a screen near you. But we started having that conversation, and it really came from Peter and Matt's connections with companies like ours, like Urban Arias and Lyric Opera of the North in particular. And as you hear about all these connections, that's kind of how we all got to be here one way or another. We were really looking, I think, and I think I can speak for many of us, that this was treading into new territory. None of us knew what we were doing when we started this. We figured that out along the way. All the nodding, yes. It was put one foot in front of the other, and okay, well, what's next? Well, legally, how do we have to do this? How do we create the business entity of this? How do we, producing opera is what we all do. So actually finding artists and creative teams, I think, is the natural part of this for us. But instead of co-producing, really co-creating this whole thing. So it was really organic, I think. There's a couple more connections I can point out. Aki and I went to conductor camp over 10 years ago. like 13 years ago, I think that's where we met a long time ago. I'm excited because a lot of the people you see on your screen I have not had the chance to work with before, and some of them I didn't even know. But so the connections are not all on this screen. There are people, there are intermediary people that are not here that we can all personally say thank you and acknowledge, who have connected us. Who, you mentioned that you're working on a project like this, and they say to you, the perfect person or the perfect company for this kind of thing would be. And that's how we found Bear Opera, for sure. That's how I got introduced to Jilana. And that's how we all kind of coalesced together. It's a series of those kinds of stories, I think.
That's fantastic. And again, I just think it's truly unique in the industry right now, and something I think other people are paying attention to. The challenge, again, it's one thing as a company to commission a new work, and that takes already a lot of energy and effort and resources. It's another thing to co-produce a production, but I think this idea of co-creation is really unique. And again, that everyone came together in a harmonious way, and in a way that I think this, I couldn't imagine, actually, Maria, when we first talked about this project, I don't think I could even imagine it. I don't think I got it until I experienced it. And I thought, wow, it was cooler than I don't know, it was cooler than I could have pictured in my mind. And to me, the greatest thing is that you can see the individuality of every company partner, of every creative team, of every artist. There's so much individuality in this, yet it all fits together in a very strange, seamless way. So even though the visuals might be very different chapter to chapter, or the overall arc is different episode to episode, it all ties together. And I think it's a really special experience. What I would recommend to anybody who's watched the episodes individually on the Friday evenings, or if you watched on demand after that, go back and watch it all in one stretch. And I think you'll have an even deeper and more profound experience in thinking about not only the artistic journey that all of these partners have taken, but also the experience of these artists who recorded things separately. I mean, when you look at just the happy hour to start the thing, like we're all doing right now, sitting with cocktails and talking to each other, but it seemed that they were all together live. And I just think it's kudos to everyone in how this came together. But I think actually that collaborative spirit probably is what drove this and really kept that feeling so seamless, because you all were in such close and constant touch. With that, I'd love to get into the idea of the selection of casts and creative teams in particular, because I assume that, hiring artists for this, or hiring creative teams even, and even the videographers and animators, anybody else may have been different than you typically would do for another project or even another commission. So why don't we play another game of tag, let's say, a little bit, and please tell us how your individual company selected your participants. How did you go about choosing them to sort of match your desired output? Why don't we start with Sarah at Loon?
I'm nervous to talk first. When I think about the things that have resonated the most deeply with our patrons over the years, it's really the fun storytelling of the comedies that we've done, whether they're Matt and Peter's. We've done 2 Hilliard and Barresi pieces, or there's a wonderful piece that was written by a local team here that just was such a smash hit that we had to do it again right away in the early 2000s. And then we just redid it a few years ago. And so another part of what people really love is that when you look at our operas, they don't look like a tiny company on a tiny budget has done them, because we have this scenic designer and painter who is sort of, she's just a tiny little miracle, just a miracle living in Duluth, and she creates gorgeous art. And so I called the librettist who writes the funny lyrics. I called Margie Preuss, who wrote the opera that started this company, basically. And then I called Ann Gumper. And I described the project as well as I could in early April. And at that point, it wasn't real clear. But we started looking at Decameron stories, and Margie gave us a treatment. And I just knew I wanted our opera to look like it was an opera set. And I wanted to provide joy. And somehow we did that out of a story of some roommates murdering their roommate's boyfriend, but it was very funny, and it looked really pretty. And what I will say, the process was, we didn't know anything. We didn't know how to do anything until we knew how to do it. We'd learned we needed to know how to do it, and then we would figure out how to do it. And the only way that was going to happen, I don't know. I might just still be sitting looking out a window by myself in northern Minnesota had I not met these people. But every week we'd meet on Tuesdays and we'd talk about what had to happen next. And people would say, well, here's what we're going to do about that. And we'd say, well, here's what we have to do legally, and here's what we have to do. And we just talked for an hour, and then things started to happen. And then it became possible. It became possible because it was happening in small bites. And our scenic designer, who was used to painting on ladders in huge rooms with carpenters having to change whole chunks of scenery if something gets changed, she was working at her desk. And we were working with a film supervisor instead of, teams of other people. So we figured things out, and I got this boost every week from this group of people. So when I felt like it wasn't quite sure what was going to happen, I would see that it actually was happening. And I don't know how to explain it other than that. It just kept happening. And you realize that you're asking your artists to also be their own film crew. And we're asking for really hard things. And it both shows what's possible, and it also shows the deep value of the incredible talent that we work with in every department on a regular opera. We shouldn't be doing our own makeup. There are reasons for that. There are reasons why there are people with certain skill sets doing certain things, but we're going to do this. And we did our best. And I think every time from now on, I will feel empowered because this group of people empowered each other to just try a 10-minute opera, and we'll go from here. It was, it's hard to explain how wonderful this was.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Why don't we go to the ladies from Bear Opera? Please tell us how you went about approaching your part of this project from the artist perspective, again, creative perspective.
So actually, we never, that was our first commission. We always wanted to do that, but we never had the budget for it. So it's been something we've been talking about for like years and years since we started, basically. And so that was actually the perfect opportunity to do that because it was shorter. It was not a complete opera, so it was little less money, and we didn't have to pay for space or anything like that usually takes all our money in New York. So and we decided that we wanted a woman composer. And so I just went on Google and listened to tons of music, to many composers. I heard many great things. I selected a few names, and then we discussed with Kirsten and the other members of the company, and we selected Jasmine because we loved her music, and our marketing director Brianna Hunter already knew her and was like, she's amazing, and so yeah, that's how we actually asked her to compose our music. But I actually never met her. We only spoke like that on Zoom, and I don't think that Kirsten has either. And for the librettist, it was again, we decided to give a chance to someone who was new for that, Nick, who Kirsten knows very well, who is a writer, but it was his first opera libretto. So we actually kind of took a risk with that, with the music and the libretto, because we were just not sure of what will happen. And so that's why we decided to work for the rest of the pieces of the puzzle with people that we knew already. So obviously we asked our favorite singers to come and sing, because also, again, as we don't have that much budget, those people were the ones who have been there since the beginning, who have sung for like little to no money. And there are like 5-6 singers like that in the company who know who they are and who just have made Bear Opera possible. So we decided to do that with them. And we had that wonderful team who has been working with us for a couple of productions with Malena Dayan and Sangwin Che, and who have always been the first ones wanting to experiment something crazy, something new. We done some live videos on stage during the productions. We have done something completely digital before that project. In May, the production we were supposed to do was actually a new piece, and it was supposed to happen in May, and obviously we couldn't do it, but it actually happened at the same date it was supposed to happen, except it was completely online, and it was in augmented reality. So it was really cool because you could move it. And so we wanted to do something similar. Obviously, we couldn't do the exact same thing, although there will be a video of our piece in augmented reality later that you can just watch by itself, and you can move the image. It's really cool. It's really fun. So yeah, because also we got the call, the email from Maria in July. So it was not a lot of time. So we had to decide on the spot, okay, let's do that. We're going to Europe, but whatever, let's do it. And as Sarah was saying, it was just so great to meet every Tuesday, because it just helped us to keep on track. We could share also our difficulties, and and also like get inspired by each other, feel supported, and also I want to give a shout out to Maria, who did so much work, like basically all the annoying work. she did all the paper stuff, like, yeah, she did everything that nobody wanted to do. And so yeah, thank you, Maria, for that.
I think it's really great to hear about, because it seems like there are some other themes coming out. I think everyone on this call is very brave, and whether they were before or not, everyone on this call is risk averse. If you weren't before, you are now, because I think it was a big risk to take on something like this in this time frame. Again, I know in the summer, sort of all this started coming together, it ramped up. But I think there are a lot of companies in the United States, but also in the world, who would be asked to be part of something like this and would very politely decline for understandable reasons. But for your individual reasons, everyone on this call said, let's go for this, let's try this. And I also applaud all of you, because you found a way to employ artists, to employ creatives during this time. And I'm married to an operatic tenor. At Lenny Studio, we work with artists at all levels and companies at all levels, and singers, conductors, it's a mix. And given the very uncertain future, the fact that all of you made that effort is tremendous. And also that you found a way, Bear Opera, this is a great example, to involve some of your artists who have been with you since the beginning, who, made very little on some of their first gigs and all of that, but you found a way to say, hey, we've got a great project going. We want you to be part of it. You know, it's really tremendous. So again, I think we're seeing a lot of common themes here. I would love to hear more about this as well from Milwaukee. Joanna, Danny, if you want to weigh in a little bit on how you approached your part of this project, that would be great.
Yeah, how about I introduce it for you, Danny? So if I take you back in time about 1 year, and last October, Danny Brylo is directing a piece called Utterance for us, which was a thing that combined Orlando de Lassus motets with this contemporary opera we commissioned that utilized extended vocal techniques and involved a lot of improvisation on the part of the performers. And then that got wedged in between the motets and the de Lassus and turned into this beautiful, mesmerizing piece. And one of the singers in that was a woman named Elizabeth, who really just stood out. Like her courage, her bravery, her vulnerability was all apparent as we worked on that project. So when this project came around as an opportunity for us, and we were among the last groups to join the coalition as well. So we were working on a super duper condensed timeline. We thought, who do we know who is like wild enough to say yes to this project? And Danny and I both brought up Elizabeth, and we had also been experimenting with a cappella work in a number of different ways over the years, and thought, oh, since we have to mobilize forces so swiftly in order to not let down our colleagues here, like, can we find that one artist who can make this coalesce, you know, just herself? So she wrote her first piece professionally, like it was her first composition for a commission for herself to sing. And then Danny, why don't you talk a little bit about how you guys found your subject?
Oh, sure. Well, I mentioned in our after party that I literally closed my eyes. I went to the Wikipedia page with all the stories of the Decameron, all the synopses of the different stories, closed my eyes and scrolled up and down and pointed to one. And just because I thought, well, we don't really have much time, but let's just see what happens if I pick one at random. And it actually ended up not being the one that we really based it on, but there are two stories in the Decameron that are pretty similar. So from picking that story, which was day 4, story 9, then there was a note on that synopsis that said, well, it's really pretty similar to day 4, story 1. So I looked over at that one, read both of the stories, and thought, yeah, okay, this has some potential. I knew I wanted to keep the creative team really small. I kind of thought both from the producer side of my brain and the artist side of my brain, like, what's going to satisfy both of these, halves. And from the producing perspective, it was like, keep it really small. We knew that we had done some a cappella work in the past, so it was nice to not have to think about hiring instrumentalists, getting that recorded. I knew that would kind of help expedite things. And initially I had conceived of it as 2 different performers playing 2 different characters. I thought that Elizabeth would write the music and then sing one of the characters, and then we would hire a separate actor or singer for the other one. And pretty early on, she said, well, what do you think about the idea of me playing both of them, to kind of go with this idea of discovering yourself, of the sort of introspection and work on yourself that can happen when we're forced to sort of hibernate. And so I just said, sure, like it's a film type format, so we can do that. There are actually only 2 shots in ours where both of the characters appear on screen at the same time. And other than that, it's all just, different days of shooting, basically. And kind of came together that way. But it was really a lot of like stars aligning in our favor.
Again, I think the fact that this all came together in the time frame that it did is just remarkable. David, I wanted to ask you in particular, with Fargo-Moorhead being, as you said, the granddaddy of the DOC, what advice or recommendations would you have to give to other companies who may be interested in collaborating on a project. What for you in this situation really worked well? Are there things that you think could be translated for other organizations? I know that every partner is obviously, again, based in a different city. The companies are a different size, different budget size, different missions, different priorities. Do you have any thoughts on sort of what would work well for people as they go to pursue these kinds of collaborations in the future?
I would say that one thing that I thought really helped us all work together was that we are all what it would be termed smaller companies. So we didn't have, there was no one company that sort of ran roughshod over everybody else. And I think that having similar-ish budget sizes was a big help. What I really have appreciated about this whole process is now that I do feel the confidence to do a standard work and take it directly to video, which we would have never considered doing before. And so that is our plan this spring, is to take Barbara Seville straight to video. And it's been a really interesting process, because the librettist that I reached out to was the libretto on one of the operas that was part of our very first world premiere in 2014, the Poe Project. And Deborah Brevoort is a Broadway playwright. Interestingly, she was one of Matt Morazi's teachers back at NYU, another connection. And so the nice thing about this was that I felt comfortable turning the project over to Deborah and then to Michael Ching as the composer. And I gave them the parameters. I said I wanted a comedy. You can use 3 singers, 3 instrumentalists, and you go ahead and pick, let me know which story you pick. So I really feel like I was able to let go of some of the artistic control in that respect that I might not have before. So I highly recommend this to other companies who maybe haven't tried a brand new digital project before. And I think it's got legs. I think it's a way that opera can move forward. And I really appreciated the advice of the people who are always commissioning new works and are always doing interesting new things. I mean, I was absolutely flabbergasted by some of the work that I saw. My gosh, the animation coming out of Duluth, or Resonance Works, and the incredible drone work that was done in Chicago and at Urban Arias. It was like, wow. And then the virtual reality that Bear was able to use. It's like, what I really liked was that everybody used the resources that they had available to them to great advantage, I thought. And I think that is something that this type of coalition can bring to opera that you wouldn't necessarily find, because everybody's got different strengths.
No, that's great, David. And I wanted to go from the granddaddy to the baby of the coalition. And Kelly, this is for you. Given how new the company is and this experience, and also it's sort of amazing when you think about where Fargo-Moorhead is located and then where the Twin Cities are located, and again, not very far from each other. But for you, are there any recommendations you would have maybe for a very new company that would be getting into a collaboration like this, or getting into a situation where they're part of a world? What should they keep in mind as they're maybe working with organizations who have been around a bit longer?
I mean, similar to what David said, know your resources. And I will be honest too, like I had to take a breath, Sarah Lawrence had called us and been like, hey, I brought you up with the DOC. And then I got this great call and had a chat with Maria and Matt. And I was like, we can't say no to this. But there was part of me of like, how do we do this? We're so young. We're such a baby in this. We're so new. Just like Bear Opera, it was our very first opera commission, something we've dreamed about for years, but had on our 5-year, 10-year plan. And so, but then I had to remind myself that I think know your company, know what resources you have, so for us, it took me a moment. I took a breath and I said, we were founded on taking risks. We were founded on not being traditional and trying something new and trying to shake up the opera culture and the opera world, just like all these other great companies on the screen. So, yeah, I dove in, and we dove in with our gut, really. We were actually the last company to come in, just I think like a day or two after Milwaukee Opera Theater. So we had like a week to write our libretto. And so yeah, I followed my gut, which I do a lot. It's such an easy thing to say, but yeah, I called on people that I trusted the most. I knew exactly what story we wanted to tell as soon as I talked with Sarah, as soon as I talked with Maria and Matt. And then I called on people that I trusted. And actually the person who wrote our libretto, Jenny O'Connell, is one of actually my closest friends from undergrad. It was her very first libretto. Our composer, it was her very first opera composition. Our director, who has a film and theater background, but no opera background. So, and I think that's a common thread with lots of these organizations. We're bridging the medium of what opera is, and I think it's really exciting. So as long as it feels right, and as long as you're confident in the people you have around you and the community you have around you, then go for it. I mean, art isn't about safety, it's about risk in the first place. It never feels super secure. It's just like any other production week. It's still just as crazy and stressful and as hectic. It's just different.
Yeah, I think everybody felt that this year. The floor sort of fell out from under all of us. And so the risk is inherent anyway in the arts. I think we forget that. Somehow we get ourselves into this mindset that there's stability and there really isn't ever much stability. So I think, but you all have created a foundation together, which is cool. I just have a couple more questions before we let everybody go. Speaking of the new and different, Bob, I would love to know what's in the future for Urban Arias in particular, because for your company, again, you guys are experienced with the new and different. You're sort of not afraid of risk. You try different things. What's next? What's happening?
Well, when this all hit, we obviously switched over to film production and to digital stuff like everyone else did. And that's been a real wild ride. It's been fun. So we simply retooled our season to produce The Roost, as we did for this production. And then our next one is called Driving While Black, or DWB, and it's by Roberta Gumbel and Susan Kander. It's about a Black woman who is bringing up her young son from infancy to teenage years and examines a whole bunch of things about inequity in America and how that whole relationship and his learning and her experience is vastly different from what we all as white people experience in teaching your kid how to drive. So we'll star Karen Slack. We're very excited about that. And we are working with the Akin brand to film it. They are a wonderful film producing company up in New York. They do a lot of things. Dubois Akin is a film director and also a choreographer, and his wife Camry is a wonderful costume designer and art director. And so I'm really tickled as to how this is going to come to be. We've had a lot of conversations about it. We'll do similarly to what we did in The Roost, which is pre-record the audio. We're bringing Karen and the instrumentalist to a studio in Washington. This is why we do in this time pieces with two instrumentalists, so we can all go in a room and we don't have to be afraid of it. And there's enough spacing for all of us, and we'll do all the precautions and all that stuff. And then it will be staged in New York, and the venue itself is TBD, but we're looking at some really fabulous spaces in Harlem that will interiors that will be a wonderful backdrop to this story. And so I couldn't be more excited. I think we were already going to do this piece this season, and this was actually a brilliant thing to then just pivot to being online versus on the stage. Who knows? Maybe we'll do it live in person too, but that's what we've got coming.
No, that's great. And I think the fact that this energy about the new and different, and also then getting into the digital sphere, continues to translate more for everyone is phenomenal. And I think we all are realistic enough to know that this is going to be the way things will have to move forward, at least for the next I don't know, several months, possibly the next year. But I think it's a beautiful thing. It's not about it being a replacement. It's actually a complement. It's something that's running parallel to live and in person. That's a theme that keeps coming up in conversations with colleagues and even artists. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, I miss connecting with audiences and but I think there are opportunities here to connect with people in a different way. And again, to tell stories that may be more difficult to tell sometimes on a main stage, but actually in a more intimate setting or through film and with all of the technological aspects that so many of you incorporated, it's really cool.
And it's something we'll keep, I think, because we don't want to, we've learned so much in this period and we've invested so much in these resources that now we understand that a digital and an online and a film production presence is a wonderful complement ongoing, not just this season, but, you know, going forward.
Yes, I agree. And I think all of us hope, again, this is a compliment. This is a beautiful enhancement of an art form that's already so special and so cool. And it's allowing more people to see it. I mean, the fact that I was able to see projects from companies where I don't have the opportunity to travel to Texas right now or to Minnesota, but that I can see your creative output from the comfort of my own home in my sweatpants, holding a cocktail with my cat and my dog on the couch. There's something nice about that too. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's fun to dress up and go to the Met and do that whole thing. But I think there's also something very real and personal about this and these stories that's so special. We had some questions come in actually online, and I wanted to get to these before we go. I think, Aki, this would be really good for Opera in the Heights in particular, knowing that you're a company that provides opportunities to artists, as you said, to maybe debut a role for the first time. And you do a lot of standard repertoire, but also you do some things new and different. This is from Deborah that came in. Did this project enable you to reach new audiences that you weren't able to reach before? If so, tell who or how do you know? But also, how did your regular audience, how have they responded to seeing this format, to actually experiencing an opera in a digital capacity? We'd love to know what the Opera in the Heights current audience, but also new audience looks like in this new space.
Opera in the Heights' audience has traditionally had pretty old school tastes. And so our subscription structure has generally been, you know, 3 war horses and maybe I would be allowed a little wild card opera I hear every now and then. And so I think it was an adventure for our patron base as it was for me. And so far the feedback has been overwhelmingly, you know, enthusiastic and just how creative all of the producers have been in taking on this assignment. And you know, it's just a profoundly different way of experiencing the genre. And I for one, I think I came in from the height of the first surge in the pandemic, thinking, well, opera has to be in person, and our patrons will never go for it unless we were in a theater. And this project has definitely changed my mind. I want to learn more from my patrons, whether or not I change their mind, and there might be some surveys towards that purpose that I will deploy. But generally, anecdotally speaking, a lot of great feedback just in response to just how diverse the visual and musical language has been in taking on this project.
No, that's fantastic. And I think, again, this idea of traditional and non-traditional, and sometimes we put our audience in boxes and maybe we make assumptions about them that aren't necessarily true. And something that Maria and I were chatting about recently is that I think as this digital space is very new for opera, we've done a decent job as an industry in educating our audiences about the art form, about particular operas, about the stories, about the music. You know, there's great educational resources from so many companies, pre-performance lectures, education in schools, everything you can imagine. But as we've been creating these new digital projects, we haven't necessarily taken the audience with us on that journey to experience the digital part. And so I think that's going to be maybe the next phase for all of us in the industry, in finding a way, whether you're it's not even about age, whether you really, you have a very old PC at home and internet that barely functions, but you love opera and you want to tune in to somebody who's incredibly tech savvy and has all the latest Apple devices. How can we welcome you into the virtual theater? How can we enhance your experience? How can we put you at the center of it? And I think the beautiful thing about Tales from a Safe Distance is it puts people at the center of it. It's this amazing story of these human beings, and you really come to care for these characters in such a short amount of time in these short pieces that you really are drawn in. And again, I think it's just kudos to everybody and to all of the creatives, all of the artists involved, to everybody for taking a risk. And we hope again that everybody that's watching this right now, or if you're sharing this with friends, please, go to DecameronOperaCoalition.org, get a ticket, buy a ticket for the holidays. If grandma needs to see some opera, if your sister, in Florida is stuck inside and not leaving, it's a quarantine themed piece, and it's appropriate, but it's engaging, it's fun. It's brilliant. And before we let everyone out of here, I just wanted to ask Matt and Maria in particular, are there any messages from the two of you, given your longer history with this coalition and with this collaboration before it even was what it was? Are there any messages you have in particular for artists and administrators who are feeling stressed out and scared during this time and are afraid to take risks? What would be a piece of advice, of digestible advice, that you could give to them to try something?
Well, I'll give you one. With regard to this group, and you heard everybody talk about their connections to the artists that they chose, and their connections and their trust of the companies that were invited into the coalition, because the entire project was scary and it was very experimental, and it did take a lot of bravery and a lot of guts on the part of all the companies to make it go. The time frame was short, the medium was new. So what most people did not take a gamble on were the personalities. People worked with people they loved to work with, because they said, well, we're going over this waterfall together. At least we're going with people that we love. So now there's no better time than right now to take artistic risks, because everything's upside down right now. No one knows what we should be looking at or how we can do anything. So take the risks now and surround yourself with people who give you comfort and make you feel brave, and who you want to go over that falls together with.
I guess I can piggyback on that and say that sometimes the people who you're going to go over the waterfall with aren't people you've known very long. Because I look around this screen and, there are a couple of us that I have had connections with before, but many of these people I have never met in person. And here we are, we did this great thing together. And the exciting thing, one of the many exciting things that came out of this for me, was the opportunity to work with people that were new connections. And we found in these new connections that bravery and courage to do this thing and to figure it out together. And that's also a risk. There's the artistic risk, and then there's the collaborative risk. And we took the opportunity to work with a composer that we had known but hadn't had the chance to work with before. One of our singers goes back to the beginning of the company with us. But I thought, well, if we can't be in the same room, I can work with somebody from Seattle that I could never afford to bring to Pittsburgh. So actually, there were all these new connections that in March, I would have never imagined. And that, I think my advice is also to be open to that. And I am always impressed how things can grow when you allow those opportunities to flourish. And I think that is really the underlying story of this project in so many ways, is that, we all took a risk, but we kind of let it blossom in ways that we were open to that. And I think that's my advice for people who are not or concerned about risk or concerned about doing something new. it can really be extraordinary. And, you know, you have to have common sense too as you go along. But, you know, I kind of knew the first time I talked to many of these people that this was going to be good and this was going to work. And I was really looking forward to having this opportunity to work with these people. So I think that's my advice.
Take the risk, people. This is the best way to go. Thank you to everyone for sharing your Friday evening or very late evenings or morning. I don't know, depends on where you're at with us. For those of you who are still happy houring, pour yourself another round, get a ticket, watch some opera, enjoy. But no, thank you. And as I said at the very beginning, it's really been a pleasure for all of us at Lenny Studio to be involved with this project and inspired by this project. And we're just so excited to see what's next for the Decameron Opera Coalition. And I know many others are as well. So cheers and congratulations to everyone on this tremendous success.
And thank you, Jenna.
Thank you.
Oh, happy weekend.